Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. Whitney Kosters, Professor of English, and in part one of this lecture series, we talked about how to start becoming more media literate by learning to identify red flags associated with misinformation, fake news, and problematic sources. But being media literate doesn't stop there. You're not fully media literate until you know how to conduct responsible research and properly evaluate a source for validity, reliability, accuracy, and credibility. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that, whether you're researching for an academic assignment or simply trying to make more informed decisions in your everyday life. And for anyone who wants something concrete to come back to later, I have included a downloadable checklist in the description box that walks through everything I'm about to explain. And if you want more help with literature, writing, rhetoric, and research, be sure to subscribe to the channel because I post regular lectures designed to help in all of these areas. As I mentioned in the first video, we're absolutely inundated with information right now, and a simple Google search can return tens of thousands of results in a matter of seconds. The problem is that most of us don't have the time, energy, or patience to sift through all of the information to figure out what's actually worth reading. So the real question becomes, how do we search for the best and most reliable information for our specific needs? The answer is efficient and responsible research. When people hear the word research, they often imagine scientists in lab coats working with test tubes. But the word research actually just means to look closely and systematically. Anytime you're thinking critically about information and actively seeking evidence, you're researching. And we do this all the time without even realizing it. When we read reviews before buying something on Amazon, when we look up consumer reports on cars, or scroll through responses to an Instagram poll. In academic settings, research is expected to be much more rigorous. The sources you consult and the information you include in your writing need to be credible, reliable, vetted, and current. So once you've settled on a topic, the first thing to think about is what kind of information you actually need. This is where the distinction between primary and secondary sources becomes important. A primary source is an original document or first-hand account that scholars analyze and interpret. That might be a novel, a historical document, field notes, eyewitness accounts, an autobiography, letters, interviews, speeches, or a case study. Secondary sources, on the other hand, are texts that analyze, interpret, or comment on primary sources. So those include reviews, textbooks, biographies, scholarly articles, lectures, and critical essays. So for example, Mary Shelley's 1818 novel Frankenstein is a primary source. Eleanor Salado's article Frankenstein in Disremembered Identity is a secondary source because it analyzes and interprets Shelley's novel. Knowing whether you need primary or secondary sources helps you avoid wasting time reading material that don't actually serve your purpose. So once you've figured that out, the next question becomes how to actually find good sources and narrow down your results. So let's start with the search engine most people turn to first, Google. There's a lot of valuable information on Google, but it's important to remember that it's not quality controlled. If you don't search strategically, you'll be overwhelmed with results, many of which are questionable at best. So the best way to approach a Google search is to treat it as a process rather than a one-time action. Start with trial and error. If your research question is something like, what shared stories or themes exist between ancient Western and Eastern mythologies, begin by entering broad keywords like shared stories, Western mythology, Eastern mythology, and then see what comes up. Pay attention to which terms return the more relevant or useful results. Then start refining. Turn those broad keywords into more specific terms like comparative mythology, cross-cultural mythology, or shared mythological themes. These are terms scholars already use, which means Google is more likely to return sources that are part of an established conversation. From there, you can continue narrowing or expanding your search by combining terms, adding regions, time periods, or belief systems, depending on what direction your research is taking. This is also the point where slowing down actually saves time. Instead of clicking every single link, scan titles and descriptions and decide whether a source is even worth opening. Google's advanced search tools can also make a big difference. Using quotation marks can change results significantly, and learning to use Boolean operators like and, or, and not allows you to refine or widen your search intentionally. I've included a link to Google's advanced search instructions so that you can explore these tools without having to memorize them, so be sure to check that out down in the description box. Now, for academic research in particular, Google Scholar is often a better place to start. It helps you locate peer-reviewed articles, technical reports, theses, and dissertations. There are also subject-specific search engines and directories that can be incredibly useful, along with academic databases like JSTOR, ProQuest, LexisNexis, PsycInfo, and WorldCat, just to name a few. Many of these are available through university libraries, and even if you're not affiliated with a university, some can be accessed through subscriptions or public libraries. Now, once you've located potential sources, the next step is critical evaluation. And I think this is where a lot of people stop too early. You have to remember that finding sources is not the same thing as vetting sources. One of the most widely used methods for evaluating information is the CRAAP test. CRAAP stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. I like this test because it gives you a structured way to decide whether a source is actually worth using. And yes, it's also a helpful reminder to figure out whether what you're reading is, quite frankly, crap. Currency refers to how current the information is. Some topics require very recent information while others don't. If you're researching dinosaurs, for instance, and your source claims that the brontosaurus never existed, that tells you the research is outdated. Scientific consensus changed in 2015, and failing to reflect that puts your credibility as a writer at risk. So always check publication dates, revision history, bibliographies, and links. If you can't trace where the information came from, ask why. Relevance asks whether the source actually fits your purpose. Before committing to reading a full article, skim abstracts, intros, or summaries. A source can be well written and credible and still be irrelevant to your research. And never try to fit a source into your argument by ignoring parts that contradict it. That is not research, that is manipulation. Authority focuses on who created the information. You should be able to identify the author, their credentials, and their affiliation. You should also look at the publisher or sponsoring organization. Sensational, gossip-driven, or heavily promotional publishers should raise immediate concerns. Domain names can offer clues, but they're not guarantees, so they're just one piece of the puzzle. Accuracy is about whether the information is supported by evidence. Ask where the information came from, whether it can be verified elsewhere, whether it's been reviewed, and whether the tone is neutral or emotionally charged. Sloppy writing, grammatical errors, and sensational headlines are often signs that accuracy wasn't a priority. Now, purpose asks why information exists. Is it meant to inform, persuade, sell, entertain, or promote a particular agenda? Is the point of view balanced? Are biases acknowledged or hidden? Understanding purpose helps you interpret the information instead of simply absorbing it. The more often you use the CRAAP test, the more intuitive it will become. Over time, you'll start evaluating information automatically, whether it's a scholarly article, a news story, or a post on social media. That habit alone makes you a stronger researcher and a more responsible participant in the information ecosystem. I hope this video has helped you feel more confident about researching and evaluating sources. Be sure to download the checklist and check out the other videos on my channel for help with writing, research, rhetoric, and of course, literary analyses. Thanks so much for joining me here, and I will see you guys next time. Be well.